What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And this week we're going to be looking at a deck that really is probably one of Magic's oldest tribes. It is always constantly up there fighting for probably one of the best tribes, probably one of the most supported tribes in Magic. And this deck has kind of seen a recent breakthrough with some of the new cards printed in some of the previous standard sets and really getting a boost and kind of showing that if you kind of sleep on it and you really just think it's some unassuming deck that you can just kind of get got by it and just really get steamrolled. Honestly, there's not really much to say, and that perfectly describes this deck as we take a look at Golgari Elves for the Pioneer format and just kind of check out this deck and see how the archetype has evolved and some of the new cards that have been added to it to kind of give it this new life in the Pioneer format. So let's go ahead, jump over, and look at the deck. One. And here we have the Golgari Elves deck piloted by Hacks_Druid. Took it to a 5-0 finish in a Pioneer League. Before we get too deep into the video and we really take a look at the deck, I would just appreciate it if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, brand new, all that sort of stuff, and you love Pioneer content and modern content as well as some other miscellaneous type videos, and maybe even some streaming on top of all that. Just all the things that we are going to start doing and have been doing on this channel. Be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you know when said streams/videos go up. I try to post 3 to 4 videos a week and try to stream at least like once or twice a week as well. Also, be sure to join the Discord server. There's a link in the description of this video. If you just slap it in, go ahead, search it up, find it, join. Love talking about Magic. Like to hear people's thoughts and opinions and kind of go over like different theories or just different cards or spoiled stuff. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead, follow that link in the description, join the Discord server. Now, Golgari Elves, it's not really anything different necessarily from, the obviously the legacy versions and the modern versions have like their own draws to playing them. Legacy, you get to play cards like Glimpse of Nature to just like draw a bunch of cards when casting a bunch of your cheap elves. You get Gaia's Cradle in Legacy, things like that just then make the deck like super explosive and they can win, in the super early turns of the game. And the same with modern, more so where it's kind of like you play a bunch of lords, you have ways to protect them, and then you just kind of like bum rush your opponent with like a bunch of elves. So this version of the deck kind of gets to do the same thing, but in different ways. So you like your 1 drops, you have your Elvish Mystics, your Land of War Elves. Nothing really different. You have Gnarlroot Trapper, which is a card that brings back so many memories of playing in Standard when Magic Origins came out. So you can pay a life and mana, but you can only use it to cast elf creature spells, and you can give a target attacking creature elf you control death touch until end of turn. Obviously, can make some of your dorks just be able to trade with maybe some of your opponent's bigger creatures in those spots where you are going to want to, beat down and just chip in for points of damage. Also, just ends up being ramp because all of your deck minus 4 collected company are elf creature spells. Who would have thought? Creeping into the 2 drop slot, we have a bunch of different creatures. You have your Clan Caller to be your Lord of Sorts. I guess not really of sorts. It is a Lord that you can also search more copies of and put them onto the battlefield by paying 6 mana and tapping the Elvish Clan Caller to go get another Elvish Clan Caller. You have War Master, who, in one way, it only triggers once each turn, but if one or more elves enter the battlefield under your control, you just make a 1/1, and then you can pay 5 to give your elves 2/2 and Death Touch. You also have Leaf Crown Visionary, which is a new card from Dominaria United. It gives your other elves +1/+1, and whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay a green to draw a card. This just going in the different way of giving you card advantage. Elvish Clan Caller will give you eventual card advantage through just making enough mana and getting more lords to kind of boost your mana dorks and other elves that are in play. Where Leaf Crown Visionary will convert that extra mana that you have from casting creature spells into just drawing extra cards, which is huge, when you just get to play a creature, draw a card, play another creature, draw a card, and you end up, like flooding out if you're super unlucky, but a lot of the times you end up drawing a mix of creatures and lands, and any other additional creatures that you draw will end up drawing you more cards later on. And of course, they already come in pretty buffed thanks to the +1/+1 that the Lake Crown Visionary gives you. Lastly, and I waited to go over this one last because Dwayne's Elite is kind of like the classic elf, I think. just gives you a lot of value. You play Dork on turn one, you play a Dwayne's Elite, and you get to make another 1/1. 2 mana, you put 3 power in play, and of course, when you have as many lords as this deck is able to play, just having 2 bodies come into play that are pretty respectable, all for 2 mana, is huge. When again, like those creatures can easily become 4 and 5 power creatures. That's a lot for 2 mana, and just synergizing very well with the deck. Of course, at the 3 drop slot, the kind of like rounding it out. Some people have been playing the creature from Kaldheim. I think it was the box topper for it, where like you name a creature type and then you can cast creature or like spell cards with the chosen type from the top of your library. This deck just decides to go with Circle of Dreams Druid, which essentially plays a Gaia's Cradle role in just obviously getting to tap for a bunch of mana for each creature that you control. Morrowind gets bigger when elves enter play under your control and adds an amount of mana equal to Morrowind's power. And of course, Shaman of the Pack, just getting to drain your opponent equals the number of elves you control, wrapped up in a nice collected company shell. So a lot of the time, you're just like wanting to dump your hand of all these elves, obviously getting to play like Leaf Crown Visionaries to just draw additional cards. And getting to cast a big collected company, hopefully hitting Shaman of the Pack, straining your opponent, and of course with like nickel and diming them with the other like small little creatures you have that will eventually turn bigger thanks to Clan Callers and Leaf Crown Visionaries. That 1 or 2 Shaman of the Packs like will just end the game. Like it'll just drain your opponent out completely and win you the game. Um, the deck, the mana base, like being pretty simple. You have a layer of the Hydra, just kind of dump extra mana into. Obviously, it can be made super big with Morrowinds and Circle of Dreams Druid and a board full of elves. You have Llanowar Waste, Overgrown Tomb, Secluded Courtyard. These two, obviously, just being like the ability to come into play untapped. Like you hurt yourself, but you're just hopefully able to outrace the damage that you do to yourself with these cards. Blooming Marsh also just being a land that can come into play untapped on the early turns. Secluded Courtyard, basically having you choose a creature type and able to cast creature spells of the chosen type or activate abilities of a creature or a creature card of the chosen type. Basically, just getting to do these things for free, essentially. Just as a land that will come into play untapped for the color mana you need. And of course, Beseiju, because why not? This mana base can afford to play Beseiju. On the sideboard, you have Fatal Pushes that can help you kind of push through damage against some of the other smaller like creature decks. I don't think this deck, Elves in particular, necessarily cares about some of the other creature decks just because you are able to just play a bunch of lords and end up just being bigger and just winning through combat. But in kind of like those mirror matches where you're both playing elves, Fatal Push can be very good at just like picking off lords and making your creatures harder to attack through until you're able to just kind of shove and then force them to block. Shaper Sanctuary can be very problematic, like for the red black deck. Just the fact that they want to kill your like little dorks so that you don't just have a board full of elves. And Shaper's Sanctuary can make it very hard for them to just get rid of those cards because then they're having you draw extra cards and you're still able to just play more dorks. You have literally 11 of them in your deck. Just in the 1 drop slot. So it definitely punishes those decks that want to essentially bolt the bird, or in this case, bolt the elf, and just giving you cards in the process. Thoughtseize mess with some of the combo decks in the format and just make it very hard for them to go off because, again, you are able to present a huge clock. Also, getting to bring these in against like control decks and things like that to just nab their board wipe. Tear Asunder, you're able to just kind of upgrade it in the late game. It obviously just does its job of being a shatter or like enchantment removal, an artifact removal, and gets upgraded to non-land permanent if you're able to kick it for 4 mana. Realm Walker is the card I was thinking of, and I'm so glad that I've found it in here because I'm not crazy and I know what I'm talking about. So this one is a card that can get you some card advantage in a different way. You can cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library, and you can look at the top card of your library at any time. When it enters, you have to choose a creature type. Obviously, choose Elf. And this being a changeling means that it is every creature type, which means that it gets buffed by all the lords and stuff in the deck. Again, just another way that this deck can give you some card advantage. Not opting to run it in the main, just obviously going for the Shaman of the Pack route, Circle of Dreams Druid, and things like that. For Leyline of the Void and the sideboard, again, just for those graveyard-based decks, the Greasefang deck being very, very popular here recently. So just having 4 Leyline is just a way to kind of hopefully have it rolled up and be able to kill them before they're able to remove the Leyline of the Void and then kill you as well. So that's the Golgari Elves deck for Pioneer. The deck, I think every deck that I go over and I end up talking about, I think is awesome. I think Magic is just a great game. Elves is a awesome archetype to be playing and one that has a ton of support for Pioneer and is kind of on the budget side. I mean, like 393, I guess I wouldn't necessarily say is like budget, but definitely 181 for Moto is really nice. And a lot of these cards you'd probably just own anyway. Like Collected Company is a good like investment because there are good Collected Company decks in Modern and Pioneer that you can play. The Four Thoughtseize is, again, good investment. Cards that definitely shift into other top decks in the format. And the mana base is pretty, like, honestly pretty good. Like, just getting the Overgrown Tombs and Besejus. Um, but aside from that, like, the deck is definitely worth investing. If you have like a lot of those cards that I just named, you are super close to just finishing the deck flat out anyway. So definitely things to keep in mind, when you're looking for a deck to play in Pioneer. Golgari Elves is definitely not a deck that you want to sleep on. It is a deck that I think it performed very well, especially if we can get rid of like Greasefang and things like that. Definitely think the deck will get a whole lot better if you're not fighting through a combo deck that can basically just kill you on like turn 3 or turn 4. So that's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, of course, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, help us get to over 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we're going to clear. It's just a matter of when, not if anymore. Of course, join the Discord server. Link is in the description of the video. That's gonna do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next video.